Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. As with all my videos, it's using non-best in slot gear, minimal to no perks, and no set rotations. As always, just remember that our goal here is not optimal rotations, it's not fast kills, and it's not peak performance. I'm here just to help show you what you're capable of, even if you don't know it yet. Better kills come with time and practice, and right now is the best time to start. With that, good luck with everything you do, and I hope you enjoy. Thank you. So here's a quick breakdown of my gear and inventory. As you can see, for the inventory, we have just the standard portents of restoration, our overload, our vuln bombs, some food, some runes, um, weapon poison, prayer potion, Excalibur, and the Elven Ritual Shard for some extra prayer. Then for our gear, we have just the full Tier 90 tank gear, the Cinderbanes, a Jas book. As you can see, the weapon, the armor, there's no augments, there's no perks. The only thing I have is Relentless, and that's just for the occasional adrenaline gain, and of course the Zuck cape for the Skulls buff. Aside from that, use whatever perks you like, use whatever aura you like. I'm using Maj, use whatever book you like. Anything works. There are no rules except the rules you set. So you're ready to start your ED3 run, and we are gonna overload up, weapon poison, prayers, get everything ready, and we're gonna go straight to the Crassian Leviathan because most people have done trash runs, and up until the Leviathan there's really nothing special. Just remember to use your AoEs, remember to use your scythe, threads of fate, and cruise on through, and then we can get started with the very first boss. So the Crassian Leviathan isn't a difficult boss, but it does hit pretty hard if you are standing directly in front of it. That's the main concern. So as long as you are positioned to the right or left at least 1 or 2 squares away, and you're not standing in this giant green toxic spew that he's spitting out, you're going to be just fine. It's poisonable, you can rip through. I always like to open up with Death Skulls just in case any of the little mobs kind of followed me in. It'll help clear it out. And you're just going to roll through. The first thing and the only thing you need to worry about is this head swipe. So when the head goes to one side, you're going to the opposite side. And the moment you see it swinging, you just kind of want to, you can have dive queued up, you can just click to run, you can face and surge, but the head is going to swing back and forth on both sides. So whichever side it starts on, I always start on the right. Sometimes you get lucky and you don't have to move right away. Sometimes it's not the case, but just get yourself prepared that the moment you see the head move to one side or the other, you're going to the opposite side. So on this end, it was on the opposite that I was standing on, and then just moved right on over. If you happen to not be using necromancy, or if you're using like ranged or mage for this, by the way, you can drop a sunshine right in the middle, and if you hover back and forth on both sides of the Leviathan, you'll be inside your ultimate the whole time. Just a little fun tidbit. So once you're through with that and you're cruising right on along, the next kind of thing to note is this area right here. There's these Ulthaven Necromancers. There's one on the left side, there's one on the right side. You only need to kill one of them, and then you can move on to the 3 armored zombies. And then once you kill those 3, that opens up the door to get to the next area. So it doesn't matter which one you use, just know you're going to one side or the other. Then once you get through that, you're going to this little spot here, and again on the right side and the left side there's that Necromancer. and you just need to kill that one mob. You can kill everything if you want, but you don't have to. You just kill the one, go through, click on the artifact to get it all, whatever magically happens there, and kill the other side, click on the artifact, and then that'll open up the main bridge. And on the main bridge, the biggest thing to know is don't have auto retaliate on, because all of those ranges on the side hitting you with the ranged hits, you can't actually get to them. So if you kill one of these, your character sometimes likes to just run around like mad trying to find something that it can't. And this is a pretty painful part of the dungeon. Those sea horrors hit really, really hard. You're taking a lot of ranged hits. The sea horrors hit melee. There's the necromancer hits mage. So it's not exactly easy to prayer flick or do anything. So what I always do, and what I find helps the most, is you can see on my buff bar, reflect, is just make sure you have your soul split up and throw on reflect once your health gets to about half, and it'll nuke out a ton of the damage that you're taking. It makes that section a whole lot easier, and especially with the bone shield, so you're not losing any damage by shield swapping, and you should cruise right on through. Once you are through all of that, you can restock if you need to, or you can go right on in, is Taret. And I didn't change my gear at all for him, but if you have the Salve Amulet enchanted, you can use that. It's remarkably strong here. Otherwise, you're going to go in, you're going to pre-summon all of your conjures, and you're going to just start the fight. He's not a difficult fight. There's a couple mechanics to be mindful of. The main thing is make sure you save your AoEs. You're just going to kind of crank out damage at the start, and the first thing you're waiting for is to see this rift spawn. And once you see that spawn, you want to kill it as quickly as you can. It spawns, there it is right there. So it spawns out adds, and if you don't kill it quick enough, it heals Taret. It does a lot of damage, and the adds also just add up pretty heavily. And you're going to now get him to 200,000. Once you get him to 200,000, he's going to go to one of the sides if you haven't kind of moved him or body blocked him, and he's going to summon the first of two adds, and the first one being the bloated monstrosity. And you can kill it right away if you want to. I find the bloated one isn't quite as frustrating to deal with as the corpse carrier, so I like to just kind of continue targeting Taret, and then once you get him back down to 200,000 again, and he goes to spawn the corpse carrier, that would be a good time if you want to, since you can see you can't do any damage to him past that phase point. You could always hop over and start killing the bloated monstrosity. Now, at this point, you have all of these guys stacked up on you. You have two options. You can either keep going on Taret, use your AoEs, and kind of kill everything at the same time. Threads of Fate is huge here. So, Threads of Fate, and then your Soul Sap, it's into volley, and you can get all your souls back. It's really nice to clear those out. Your AoE heal, your Soul Scythe, all of that is super helpful. And if you're not super comfortable with kind of getting really low health from these ghosts that just spawned here, that hit really, really hard, make sure you have enough adrenaline for reflect, because they hit super hard if you don't get out of the way. You can just surge out of the way, you can escape, dive, whatever you need to do. You can reflect, you can just kind of power through by eating. It's really however you want to handle it. I tend to just sit there and ignore it and get really low and almost die, but that's because it's just sort of how I handle that mechanic, because I'm lazy. So make sure, however you handle it, you just don't die, and you can cruise right on through. Again, if the damage is getting a little too much to handle, target down the corpse carrier, target down the bloated monstrosity, kill them before you keep going on to Taret. But just know, if you want to, you can always just kind of ignore them and power right on through. So once you kill Taret and you move on to the next little area, a small tidbit is if you hug this back wall, you kind of get that necromancer to aggro you, and then as you move along through, you can pull the necromancer out, and it just makes it a little more convenient. And then I'm just showing this bit because this is the only mini boss in the entire dungeon that I actually enjoy killing, and I make a point of killing every single time I'm through. And that's only because this boss drops a really, really rare skull. It's like 1 in 2,000 or something crazy, and I have yet to get it, but you know, it's always something that would be cool to get. So definitely, if you see him, take a whack at him, maybe you'll get lucky. Then you're going to kill all of the rest of the necromancers in the room, and you're going to click on that white little patch there to dive down, and you're going to get into the next and final area where you're going to be killing all the little ads and all the little mobs. And once you nuke all of them down and you can move through, there's the warped skeletons, and just be mindful of the warped skeletons because they hit really, really hard. They can kind of do a lot more damage than you're prepared for without you realizing it, and there's a couple in the next few sections, so just be mindful of the fact that they are there. They hit really hard, and you don't want to get completely caught out by that. So once you've cleared everything, you're ready to go, and it is finally time to take on the mighty Ambassador. So make sure you are prepared, because this is the only part where I'm going to get a little bit more in depth, because Ambassador is notoriously a big stepping stone and threshold and barrier for a lot of people. But if you just take it slow, take it steady, and don't panic, it's a much easier fight than you might expect. Before you get started with your first potentially solo Ambassador kill, or whatever number kill this is, I'm going to just take a quick look at a couple things that'll make your life a lot easier, making sure that this fight goes smoothly and there's no hiccups. First, make sure you have your Cinderbanes. Ambassador is poisonable, and that damage adds up a lot. Second, again, as we've been using this whole time, your Blood Reaver. Those heals are super, super, super critical, because they're going to make it so you can just focus on doing damage and dealing with the mechanics and keeping Soul Split up. And between the Blood Reaver and your Ghost and Soul Split, all three of those combined, that will keep you alive. You just need to focus on your damage. And then there's a couple abilities that I'd like to highlight that are important for the fight and could be important for you. So first, we have our defensive abilities, which not a lot of people who are getting into PVM are fully aware of just how good defensives are, and that's because prior to necromancy is typically using defensives beyond devotion or anticipate or debilitate was not always favorable, because you'd need a shield swap or you'd need a defender, but either way that would result in kind of a DPS loss because you're swapping off of your weapons. Now that you have Bone Shield, you can freely use your defensives and you're not losing any damage whatsoever, except for the potential adrenaline loss caused by using those defensives. But Reflect and Debilitate are going to be your best friends in this whole fight. And if you pay attention to the timers on them and you alternate between Reflect and Debilitate, it's going to make the damage you take far less, far easier to manage, and make the whole fight feel a lot smoother. And then as you get more comfortable, you don't have to use them quite as much. You can phase out of using them altogether. But when you're starting, make sure you really get comfortable using Reflect and Debilitate. Next, two abilities that are critical for the whole fight is your Prism of Restoration, and that is used kind of routinely throughout using a Blood Reaver because that's what keeps it alive, so it doesn't die on you, so you don't have to resummon any with scrolls and have all of that in your inventory taking up extra space. And then finally is the Soul Strike, and that is your single soul stun ability. And the reason that's important is because Ambassador has a mechanic called the little black hole, and if you don't stun the black hole, it explodes and it hits you for a lot of damage, and that's just not something we really want to deal with. So if you have those 4 abilities in the back of your head that you know where your Reflect, your Debilitate, your Prism, and your Soul Strike are, everything else is just cruise control. However long it takes, you're going to be fine. And with that, let's get started with the kill. So you're going to head on down to the bottom of the hill. You're going to summon all of your familiars, and something that you can do that's optional, it depends on my mood if I do it or not, is you can start with a resonance or divert or whatever you want for this first hit. That big blue ball is a magic hit. Like you saw, I kind of like to resonance it. It just gives me health back after that life transfer. If you want, you could divert if you want the adrenaline instead. But either way, you're going to go in and you're just going to start doing damage, and that blue ball is going to be constant throughout the whole fight. Then, if you remember earlier from the ED1 video, the Chamber Guardian is that overhead smoke. Ambassador has that same mechanic throughout the whole thing. So you're just going to surge over to an edge, dump it out of the way so it's not anywhere that's going to worry you, and then come on back in. Then you just saw it, that was the black hole. That's where we're using our Soul Strike to stun it and get rid of it, and then we're going right back. And the whole goal here is to just do as much damage as you can, and if everything kind of goes smoothly and you're not worrying too much about what's going on, hopefully you can get him to a point where he's able to be one cycled, which means after you deal with the spinner phase here, you're going to be able to get him to that 650, 550k health before the next set of spinners. And as long as you're just consistently doing some damage, your conjures are killing and hitting, that shouldn't be a problem. Just make sure, again, you don't panic, take it slow and steady, and you'll be good to go. And then we're on to the spinners phase, which is super easy, especially with necromancy, because you have a lot of options here to make this kind of not horrible. And something that makes it a lot easier is, as long as you have the adrenaline for it, you don't have to kill the spinners. If you get them low and then you just throw the magical wonderful ability Bloat on the spinners, you can walk away and Bloat will take care of the rest. And it's really a lot easier. Just surge and dive are also really helpful in maneuvering this. Just make sure you're conscientious of what direction you're actually facing before you use surge, because you don't want to be facing the wrong way. You surge into a spinner and then it all kind of becomes rather unpleasant. So here I absorbed 2 spinners, and that's, you can go for absorbing no spinners, you can go 1, 2, 3. It's not a big deal. If you end up getting a lot of spinners that you can't kill, I suggest bringing a Vit Pot, because then on this first explosion you can Vit Pot it and then it doesn't matter about your adrenaline. However, those abilities Debilitate and Reflect, make sure this is a wonderful spot where you have the adrenaline, you use Reflect, it goes off and it does no damage. 4,000 out of 14,000 health is negligible at best. Then after that, throw on your debilitate, and again, if your health is high, you're good to go, and it's way less punishing than people think it is. So you get your overhead smoke, you just kind of get out of the way, you hop back in, you target ambassador, and your whole goal here is to get to 550,000 before the next set of spinners. And when you see that text line, you should surrender now. You know you've successfully passed this phase and you're no longer getting spinners and you're on to the next section. So it's just what you've been doing the whole time. Be consistent with your smoke placements. Make sure you're aware of the magic hits, the blue balls that kind of slap you. And keep in mind, if you are in melee distance and you're closer, they won't be mage hits, they'll be melee hits. And those are obviously not quite as projected, not as easy to see. And make sure you ignore the little ads, because eventually Seiryu is going to kill them for you. You saw there, Seiryu gives you a full free heal, so if you're panicking on your food usage or your health, don't worry, Seiryu will heal you, so you can kind of let your health get a little bit lower. And then here's the final part, which is both the easiest and the hardest part of the whole fight. And this is kind of, a lot of people think it's a DPS check because, yeah, ambassador's getting healed and you have to overpower it, and that's not true, or it's true, and it kind of depends on how you want to play it. Me personally, I tend to ignore the heals and you just power through, and if you kind of build your stacks, make sure you have your souls, your necrosis stacks, get everything prepped, you get your split soul ready to go, you can kind of push through that. Alternatively, if you want to, you can run in circles with these black hands that smack the ground and the white smoke that comes out of them. You can intercept that. You like stand in between the hand and the smoke to prevent that healing from happening. That is absolutely an option. But I've found with necromancy, with good stack usage, you don't need to. You can push out way more damage than those things can heal. And the only thing now you need to worry about is this right here. And this has killed a lot of people because they don't realize it's a mage hit, but it's not one big mage hit. It's multiple small hits. So I've seen a lot of people think, oh, just put on your mage prayer, hit resonance, you're good to go. That's not the case. You want to put on your mage prayer, and the only thing you need to worry about throughout this whole phase is make sure you have enough adrenaline for when that happens, you can cast Devotion. And if this phase takes too long to where you get that mechanic multiple times, those wonderful defensives of Reflect and Debilitate, make sure you can use those. And you're going to alternate between Devotion on one mechanic and Reflect or Debilitate on the next, and just roll your way through. And as long as you're slow, you're steady, you don't panic, you will get the kill. The Reaver is healing you. Those portents of restoration, they'll make sure you stay alive too. They're passively healing you. You have tons of food. You have your ghost. Make sure he stays alive throughout the whole fight. And just slow and steady, go through. And I promise you will get the kill. I hope you have wonderful luck on your drops. I hope to see a lot of people with the ED3 log running around after seeing this video. Good luck.